She didn't know I saw her tuck her wedding ring into her purse before we walked into the party. No, I wasn't supposed to be looking. I was zipping up my coat, fumbling with the house keys, trying to make us not late again. But when I turned to ask if she had the gift for her boss, she was there at the mirror, sliding her ring off with a quick flick and slipping it deep into the side pocket of that glittery gold clutch. I froze. She saw me see her. We made eye contact. She blinked once, smiled, and said, "You ready?" I said nothing, just nodded and followed her into the cold. The car ride to the hotel was a silence I didn't know how to fill. I stared at traffic lights and tried to act normal. My throat felt like I'd swallowed cotton. I asked her if she was nervous about the presentation tonight, and she replied, "Not even a little." I think that was the first time I knew something had truly changed. Because Claire was always nervous. She would rehearse conversations in the shower. She once practiced how to say good morning to a VP for an entire Uber ride. But tonight? Cool. Effortless. Like I wasn't even next to her. We arrived late, of course. The ballroom was already buzzing. Soft jazz, glittering gowns, laughter that sounded just a little too perfect. I carried our coats. She walked 5 feet ahead of me, like I was her driver. Every now and then, she'd glance back, half smile, and wave me toward her like she was signaling a waiter. Then it happened. We were standing near the dessert table. Well, I was standing there, awkward and alone, when she came over holding 2 glasses of wine. She handed me one like she was doing charity work, then looked around the room, scanning for someone. I tried to do something small, something human, something married. I reached out and gently took her hand. She flinched. "And I swear to God," she whispered, "don't let them think we're a couple." Not in anger, not in shame, in strategy. Like being with me was bad optics. I laughed, like an idiot, like a man who still thought maybe this was a misunderstanding. Then I set my glass down. I stood up straight, and I said loud enough for her, and maybe everyone within 6 feet, to hear. "From this moment, we're not." She blinked, smirked, didn't say a word. And as I turned to leave, I passed a man in a dark green suit watching us closely. Too closely. Guess who he was? I'll tell you in part 2. And trust me, this was no random guest. I didn't even make it past the hotel lobby before I turned back. Not because I wanted to go back to her, God no, but because something about that guy in the green suit gnawed at me. You know that gut instinct you ignore because you're afraid of what it might confirm? Yeah, that one. It kicked in hard. I stood behind a fake plant like a complete idiot, watching through the glass as she walked over to him. Not just walked, floated. Like some invisible string had been pulling her toward him the whole night. He didn't smile when she got there. He barely looked surprised. She just leaned in, said something close to his ear, and the way his hand brushed her lower back like it belonged there. God, I felt like I was going to throw up. I left then. I didn't have the stomach to see more. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 2 hours, trying to convince myself that maybe I misread the whole thing. Maybe it was just a work friend. Maybe I was being insecure. But here's the thing. When a man starts justifying why his wife would hide her ring and tell people they're not a couple, he's not insecure. He's just catching up to the truth. When she came home later that night, she smelled like champagne and something that wasn't her perfume. I asked how the party ended and she said, "You didn't miss much." Didn't miss much? I missed the part where my marriage stopped pretending it existed. I missed the truth. And I knew I wasn't going to get it from her. So the next day, I called in sick from work. She thought I was home catching up on sleep. I was at a cafe, Googling how to find out if your spouse is cheating without making it obvious. I didn't want drama. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted facts. And the facts came faster than I expected. She left her iPad on the kitchen counter before heading out to Pilates. The screen lit up with a message preview from someone saved as M. Just one line. "Last night was electric. We should have done this sooner." I didn't even need to guess. I tapped the message, and what unfolded was months of flirting, planning, secret meetings, and hotel reservations under a corporate card she once said was for emergencies. Every sweet word she stopped saying to me, she was giving to someone else. Every night she came home, exhausted. She had just been energized by another man. And the kicker? This M wasn't just anyone. He was married too. I had no idea yet just how deep this betrayal ran, or how many lies she had built on top of each other to keep it all hidden. But I wasn't going to confront her yet. No, not until I had everything. Because the next move? It wasn't going to be emotional. It was going to be surgical. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table just staring at the iPad. Every message was a stab, but I kept reading. Not because I wanted to torture myself, but because I needed proof. Every reservation, every kissy face emoji, every late meeting that ran over. I cross-referenced it all with my own calendar. While I was home doing laundry, she was at a rooftop bar with him. While I was shoveling snow off our driveway during a storm, she was spending the night in a business suite downtown, on a mattress we didn't share, with someone who called her my little wolf. Yeah, little wolf. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, but he said it a lot. She liked it. She sent him selfies in hotel bathrooms, full-body mirror shots, things I hadn't seen in years. I tried to remember the last time she sent me anything remotely playful. Probably 2018. And even then, it was just a love you too, with no emoji. So I screenshotted everything, backed it up to a flash drive. Then 2 more. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew I needed to protect the truth. She had already rewritten our reality in those messages. I wasn't going to let her do it again in court if it ever came to that. I knew confronting her then would just lead to a disaster. Tears. Deflection. Probably some line like, "It wasn't serious," or "You pulled away first," or my personal favorite, "You made me feel invisible." And the worst part? I might have believed her. Because I'm wired like that. I second-guess myself more than I question other people. But not this time. Instead, I played dumb. Smiled. Asked how her Pilates session was. She said it was intense. I nearly choked on my coffee. For the next few days, I acted like the same old Delbert. Packed her lunch. Asked about her meetings. Gave her space, just like she always said she needed. But behind the scenes, I was preparing. Quietly. Carefully. I met with a lawyer, someone a coworker referred me to. I laid out the truth, flash drives and all. The lawyer didn't say much. Just looked over the screenshots and muttered, "She's bold." Then he said something that changed everything. He told me that Claire had quietly changed our joint account structure 6 months ago. Made it so she had access to our emergency savings without needing both signatures. He pulled the paperwork. My name had been digitally signed, but it wasn't me. It was forged. And you know what? It worked. Because the bank let it through. Claire had drained nearly $28,000. When I asked where the transfers went, the lawyer said one word, Venmo. Thousands, chunked out in casual payments. You know what the labels said? Yoga retreat deposit. Business dinner split. Cab share. And the last one, private reservation, full balance. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there in that office, staring at the transaction list like it was someone else's life. Someone dumber. Someone blind. But I wasn't blind anymore. She didn't just betray me emotionally. She robbed me. She staged a coup on our life while I was still folding her bath towels and buying her oat milk. So I asked the lawyer one question. If I stay calm and quiet, can we take everything from her? He smiled. If you're patient, Delbert, we can do worse. And that was the first time I felt something that wasn't heartbreak. It was strategy. You know what's strange? Once I stopped crying over her, I started noticing things I'd ignored for years. Like how often Claire disappeared on business weekends, but never brought home receipts. Or how she always had fresh manicures when we were supposedly too broke to fix the leak in our ceiling. Little cracks I'd patched with trust now looked like gaping sinkholes, and every one of them screamed, "She's been planning this longer than you've known." I didn't want to live like a victim anymore. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I called up someone I hadn't spoken to in 6 years, Claire's former best friend, Felicity. They'd had a falling out a while back over something I was never told the full story of. Claire called her a jealous burnout. Felicity, however, answered my call on the first ring and said, "Took you long enough." That was how our conversation started. The second sentence? I warned her this would blow up in her face someday. She didn't even sound angry. She sounded amused. Like she'd been waiting for me to connect the dots all along. And when I asked if she knew who M was, she laughed so hard she had to put the phone down. M, she said finally, is Martin Donnelly. Her ex. From before you. I paused. Wait. Martin. The one who moved to Chicago? Not anymore, she said. He moved back last year. Guess she forgot to mention that. I felt like my lungs were filled with concrete. Martin wasn't just her ex. He was the one she used to say ruined her. The toxic guy. The one she cried about in our first year of dating when she thought I was asleep. The guy she promised she'd never speak to again. That guy was back, and she ran right into his arms like the last decade never happened. And it gets worse. Felicity told me the real reason they stopped speaking. She caught Claire messaging Martin behind my back years ago and confronted her. Claire denied everything and shut Felicity out of her life completely. So yeah, this wasn't new. Claire didn't just fall into an affair. She'd been orbiting this man, like a satellite waiting for a signal. At this point, I knew what I had to do. The lawyer helped me pull credit reports, mortgage activity, and property records. And surprise, surprise, Claire had co-signed a luxury apartment lease 3 months ago, under a Shell LLC. Guess who the other tenant was? Martin Donnelly. So while I was home stress washing the deck and checking prices for roof repairs, Claire was building a second life with a man she swore she hated. The next part was tricky. I needed her to stay blind to what I knew. I needed her to believe she was still in control. So I became the perfect husband again. I complimented her hair. I offered to pick up groceries. I even made a playlist for her commute. She smiled more. She let her guard down. And while she was busy writing her happy ending, I was writing something else entirely. An exit plan so clean, so brutal, and so legally airtight that even Martin wouldn't see it coming. Claire thought she had it all figured out. She thought I was still clueless, still orbiting her like some loyal, broken moon. But I had stopped being her safety net the second I learned about the apartment. The second I learned about him. And it was time she learned that I don't just fold laundry and disappear quietly. I set traps. I invited her to dinner at her favorite Italian place. The same one where I proposed to her 10 years ago. I even made sure we got the same booth. Corner seat, soft lighting, good wine. I wore the shirt she once said made me look less like a librarian. And I even brought flowers. Real ones. No sarcasm. She smiled when she sat down. That fake, carefully calculated smile she reserves for company or courtroom mediation. "You're being sweet," she said, like it was a surprise. I just nodded and told her. I wanted tonight to feel special. And then I texted the guest. Martin showed up 13 minutes later. I watched Claire's entire soul leave her body when she saw him walk in. Her smile died mid-sentence. She turned pale. Not the nervous kind of pale. The cornered animal kind. She didn't say his name, didn't even breathe. Just stared at me like I had detonated a bomb under the table. "Sit," I said to Martin, who looked like he'd just walked into a deposition. He didn't say much either. Just slid into the booth across from her and adjusted his cufflinks like he wanted to be anywhere else. That's when I pulled out the envelope. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I just placed it on the table, dead center, and said, "These are the screenshots. The transfers. The signed lease. The dates and times you both forgot to delete from your phones." Claire still didn't speak. So I kept going. "I also have a statement from your former friend Felicity confirming that this has been going on for longer than either of you would dare admit. And I have a lawyer who's already filed the paperwork for financial misconduct and marital fraud." Martin finally blinked. Claire just stared down at the tablecloth like it was trying to save her. "But I wasn't done. You drained our account. You lied to my face. And you put everything we built on the line so you could play house with a man who used to make you cry into your pillow while I pretended to be asleep." Claire opened her mouth, maybe to apologize, maybe to scream, but I raised my hand. "This isn't a confrontation. It's a courtesy. I'm giving you a heads up before everything you built comes crashing down." And then I stood up. But before I walked away, I leaned in and whispered something just for her. "Oh, and you should probably let Martin know the other person I invited tonight was his wife." Claire looked like she was about to collapse. Martin stood up so fast he knocked over his wine glass. I walked out before the screaming started. But the fallout? That was just beginning. I thought she'd go quiet after that dinner. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd do what most guilty people do when they realize they've lost. Lay low, cooperate, try to salvage whatever dignity they have left. But no, Claire didn't retreat. She retaliated. 3 days after the restaurant bombshell, I got served. Right there, at my job, in front of 2 coworkers and a confused FedEx guy. A thick manila envelope with her name all over it. Claire Donnelly, apparently. She'd already started changing her name back to his, like I was just a weird layover in her glamorous love life. Inside the envelope, a countersuit. She claimed I had been emotionally neglectful, that I was unavailable, passive-aggressive, and manipulative, and that she had no choice but to seek comfort elsewhere. And then came the cherry on top. She was demanding spousal support. Spousal support. From me. The same woman who emptied our emergency fund for weekend getaways was now saying she deserved a monthly payment for loss of lifestyle. I laughed out loud. At work, in the middle of a staff meeting, my manager asked if I was okay. I told him, "Oh yeah, just got asked to pay someone to cheat on me. Totally normal Wednesday." But I wasn't just shocked. I was impressed. She was bold, arrogant even, and I realized something important right then. Claire had no idea how deep I'd gone. She thought I only knew about the messages and the affair. She thought this was still a war of words and blame. She had no idea I'd already handed everything over to a forensic accountant. That guy, Gregory, was worth every cent. He'd combed through 2 years of Claire's financial activity. What he found wasn't just evidence of cheating. It was tax fraud, corporate card abuse, multiple Venmo accounts under fake usernames. And get this, she'd been claiming expenses from those hotel stays as client meetings and billing them to her firm. Gregory compiled a 43-page report. My lawyer handed it to her attorney before the first hearing. The silence that followed? Beautiful, like the first snowfall after a storm. But the real twist came the night before our court date. Claire showed up at my door. No text, no call. Just her standing there in the rain with mascara running down her face and her voice all cracked and soft, like some twisted rom-com scene. She said, "Can we talk? Please?" Now I know what you're thinking. I should have slammed the door. I should have let her drown in the consequences of her own arrogance. But I let her in. Not because I wanted her back, God no, but because I wanted to see what kind of performance she thought would still work on me. She sat on the couch like a stranger. Said she didn't want things to end like this. Said Martin had turned cold since the dinner. That he blamed her for the fallout. That she felt alone and used. I listened, sipping my tea, letting her spin her tragic little tale. Then she hit me with it. What if we try again? You and me. Start over. We don't need the lawyers. I swear I almost choked. This woman burned our marriage to the ground, danced in the ashes with another man, sued me, and then showed up thinking I'd just take her back? Like I was some sad little doormat waiting by the door with open arms? I stood up, walked to the closet, pulled out the one thing I'd been saving for just this occasion, a printed copy of the financial report. All 43 pages. I handed it to her and said, if I ever doubted I was being used, this confirmed it. She flipped through the first few pages. Her hands shook. You're going to ruin me, she whispered. No, I said. You already did that yourself. I'm just making sure it's documented. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just walked out, quieter than I've ever seen her. And that was when I knew. She had finally realized she'd lost control. I wish I could say walking into that courtroom felt like justice. It didn't. It felt like walking into a war zone that I didn't start, but somehow still had to survive. Claire was already seated when I arrived, her lawyer whispering something into her ear. She looked polished, confident, like this was just another negotiation she planned to win. Like she didn't torch our marriage, humiliate me, and try to walk away with a monthly reward. But behind her calm face, I could see it, the nervous twitch in her eye, the way her foot wouldn't stop bouncing under the table. She knew something was coming. She just didn't know how bad it would be. The judge was straight to the point. Evidence was presented. My lawyer read our financial timeline like it was a crime novel. The fake Venmo accounts. The falsified expense reports to her firm. The shell company tied to the lease she signed with Martin. Each fact landed like a punch. Claire tried to stay composed, but the cracks were showing. Then came the witness. My lawyer had called someone I never expected to see again, Martin's wife. Yeah, his real wife. Turns out Martin had never told her about Claire. She found out from the dinner confrontation I orchestrated and had since filed for divorce. But what really sealed it? She handed us screenshots of messages Claire sent him that went back even further than I knew. Some from 3 years ago, while Claire and I were on vacation celebrating our 8th anniversary. 3 years. The courtroom was silent. The judge looked visibly uncomfortable reading some of the messages. Claire tried to object, claimed it was private correspondence. The judge didn't buy it. Her lawyer's confidence shattered. They asked for a recess. It was denied. But just when I thought it couldn't get more absurd, Claire made her final move. She asked to speak. No one stopped her, probably because we all wanted to hear what kind of fantasy she'd try to sell this time. She stood, looked right at the judge, and said, I made mistakes. But my husband neglected me emotionally for years. I felt invisible. That's why I drifted. He never touched me anymore. He was obsessed with work, with routine. I needed affection. The judge asked if she had any proof. She didn't, because there wasn't any. What she didn't expect, though, was that I did. Emails, notes, voice messages, the love letters I wrote her on our anniversaries. The printed-out itinerary of a couple's weekend I had booked 2 months before she began sleeping with Martin, something she canceled at the last minute because she had a migraine. I gave all of it to my lawyer, who handed it over like the final nail in a very expensive coffin. Claire sat down, said nothing else. She knew. The judge didn't even take long to decide. Not only was the request for spousal support denied, but the court awarded me partial reimbursement for misappropriated funds. She would be responsible for repaying a portion of what she took, plus attorney fees. Her reputation at work? Already circling the drain. My lawyer had notified her firm about the fraudulent expenses. Quietly, strategically, the disciplinary hearing was already in motion. Outside the courtroom, she didn't look at me, just walked past, shoulders tight, lips sealed. I should have felt triumphant, but all I felt was empty. 10 years. 10 years, and all it took to unravel it was a lie she told herself, that I was boring, that Martin was excitement, and that she could get away with it. I didn't celebrate right away. No champagne, no I told you so moment, no petty social media posts. Honestly, I just went home and sat in the living room surrounded by silence. But for the first time in months, that silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. Claire moved out of our home 2 weeks later. She left behind a few things: old scarves, some cookbooks she never used, and a cracked photo frame from our 5th anniversary. I didn't throw them out. I packed them into a box and left it at the front desk of her new apartment. No note, no explanation, just a quiet goodbye. The fallout hit her fast. She was placed on administrative leave at her firm, pending a formal investigation into the expenses. Martin ghosted her entirely. I heard through the grapevine that he skipped town again, and this time, his ex-wife wasn't so forgiving. Claire, the woman who once acted like she had every option in the world, was suddenly the one standing alone. But this isn't about her anymore. A few months after the dust settled, I decided to do something I'd been putting off for years. I booked a trip. Just me. No anniversary excuse. No, we need a break, compromise. Just something for me. A quiet cabin near a lake in Oregon. I brought books, my old camera, and 1 suitcase. I turned off my phone for 5 days. For the first time in forever, I remembered what it felt like to breathe without waiting for the next hit. And then, something unexpected happened. On the last night of my trip, I met someone. No dramatic sparks. No love at first sight fairy tale. Just a conversation at a campfire with someone who asked me, "What's the kindest thing you've done for yourself this year?" I didn't even have an answer at first. I just laughed, awkward and still a little raw. But that question stuck with me. The kindest thing I'd done? I stopped holding on to someone who let go of me a long time ago. Now, months later, I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm rebuilding, slowly but honestly. I joined a local community photography group. I started hiking again. And yeah, I still overthink everything and fold my socks in pairs because that's just who I am. But I'm okay. To anyone out there feeling small, feeling betrayed, feeling like they've become invisible in their own marriage, don't wait for someone else to rescue you. Don't beg for the bare minimum. Get your truth. Get your clarity. And walk. Not because you're petty, because you deserve better. Thanks for listening. If my story hit you in any way, leave a comment. You're not alone. And if you're healing, I'm right there with you.